Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real. People often ask me, and the first thing I say is this: don't get it twisted. Love is not about running games. It's about truth. If you think you can snatch a man away with tricks and schemes, you might get him for a minute, but you won't keep him. Because a relationship built on games falls apart the moment reality shows up. What you have to do is stop worrying about her and start showing who you really are. When it comes to relationships, one of the most important truths people need to understand is the difference between love that's built on games and love that's built on truth. See, a lot of people get caught up in the excitement of the chase, the thrill of competition, the idea of trying to outsmart somebody else to get what they want. But here's the reality: if love starts with tricks, it will eventually collapse under the weight of those same tricks. Love can't survive on a foundation of manipulation, lies, or pretending to be someone you're not. It might sparkle for a moment, it might feel exciting for a season, but sooner or later the truth shows up. And when the truth comes out, the games fall apart. The problem is that people confuse attention with affection. Just because a man looks at you, smiles at you, or shows interest in you doesn't mean his heart is ready for you. And if you try to play games to keep him, you'll spend your whole time together worrying about the next move, the next trick, the next strategy to keep his eyes on you. That's not love. That's exhausting. That's insecurity dressed up as romance. Real love isn't a chess game. It's a commitment. It's not about winning a round. It's about building a future. And when you know that, you stop wasting energy on games and start focusing on truth. Truth is powerful because it doesn't need an act. You don't have to pretend to be the funniest, the most glamorous, the most perfect person in the room. Truth means showing up as yourself and letting someone see the real you, flaws, struggles, quirks, and all. That's the difference between love built on games and love built on truth. In a game, you're scared to lose. In truth, you're confident because you know what you're offering can't be duplicated by anybody else. A man who's with someone because she plays the best game will eventually walk away when he gets tired of the performance. But a man who's with someone because of truth, because of her honesty, because of the peace and respect she brings to his life, won't feel the need to look anywhere else. That's the kind of bond that lasts. That's the kind of connection that grows deeper over time. You don't need to chase. You don't need to compete. You don't need to pull another person down to make yourself look higher. Truth always wins because it speaks for itself. Here's the thing about truth: it doesn't rush. It doesn't push. It doesn't force. It just stands firm and allows the other person to recognize it. And when a man realizes he's dealing with truth instead of games, that realization stays with him. It makes him reevaluate where he is, who he's with, and whether what he has now can really compare to what you bring. And if he decides to leave where he is, it won't be because you manipulated him, but because he saw the difference between temporary excitement and lasting value. One of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships is thinking they have to compete by tearing somebody else down. They look at the person their man is with, and instead of focusing on themselves, they start pointing out everything wrong with her. They criticize how she looks, how she talks, how she acts, hoping that if they put enough negativity in his ear, he'll see her the way they see her. But here's the truth. When you spend your energy tearing someone else down, you actually make yourself look smaller. You end up putting more attention on her than on yourself, and the man ends up wondering why you're so focused on his relationship instead of showing him why you're worth his time. See, a real connection isn't built by comparison. It's built by authenticity. If you want somebody to recognize your value, you don't do it by highlighting another person's flaws. You do it by showing your strengths. You bring your peace, your confidence, your joy, your humor, your intelligence, your kindness, whatever makes you stand out, and you let that speak for itself. When you walk into the room carrying light, people notice. You don't have to dim somebody else's light for yours to shine. You just have to shine so brightly that he can't ignore it. What a lot of people forget is that men see through bitterness. They might not always say it, but they recognize when someone is too hard to make another person look bad. That doesn't make you more appealing. It makes you look insecure. And nobody wants to build a life with insecurity. On the other hand, when you carry yourself with confidence and don't waste your time dragging someone else's name through the mud, you stand out. That kind of self-assurance is attractive and it makes a man stop and think, wait a minute, this person is different. When you show who you are instead of tearing someone down, you give him a clear choice. He gets to see what life with you would feel like, how your energy changes the room, how your presence makes things better, how your respect and confidence set the tone. And when he compares that to drama, negativity, or even just comfort that doesn't challenge him to grow, the choice becomes obvious. You never had to say a bad word about her because you let your actions and your spirit speak louder than anything you could have said. Think about it. If he leaves her because you dragged her name through the dirt, he's always going to wonder if you'll do the same to him one day. But if he leaves because he saw your truth, your confidence, and your peace, he'll know he made the choice for the right reasons. You don't have to force it, and you don't have to rush it. All you have to do is be who you are, because when you carry yourself with that kind of strength, you don't need to compete with anybody. You don't need to pull someone else down when you already stand tall. A lot of people believe that men just wake up one day and decide to walk away from someone for no reason, but that's not how it works. A man doesn't leave unless he sees real value in something different. Value is what changes the whole picture. You can't pressure a man to leave. You can't manipulate him into leaving, and you definitely can't rush that process. But when a man experiences real value in someone else, it plants a seed in his mind that starts to grow. He begins to compare what he has with what he could have, and if the difference is undeniable, that's when change happens. Now let's be clear. Real value doesn't come from looks alone. It doesn't come from just being fun or exciting for a short time. Real value comes from what you bring consistently. It's the way you treat him, the respect you give him, the peace you provide in his life, the way you understand him without him having to say every word. It's the way you hold yourself with confidence and don't let yourself settle for less than you deserve. A man sees that and he feels it on a deeper level. That kind of value speaks louder than anything you could ever say to him. What happens is he starts to notice the contrast. He looks at where he is and compares it to how he feels when he's around you. Maybe he feels heard with you in a way he doesn't feel anywhere else. Maybe you bring calm into his world when everything else feels loud and chaotic. Maybe you make him laugh in a way that reminds him of what joy really feels like. That's value. And when he starts to recognize that, his heart begins to shift. He can't ignore that difference even if he tries. See, a man might stay in a situation out of habit, out of history, out of comfort, or even out of fear of change. But when real value shows up, it challenges all of that. He realizes comfort isn't the same as happiness, routine isn't the same as fulfillment, and history isn't the same as future. That recognition doesn't come from you asking him to compare. It comes from feeling it for himself. And once he feels it, he can't shake it. The thing about value is that it doesn't have to advertise itself. You don't have to beg him to see it. You don't have to tell him to notice it. Value stands on its own. It shines naturally. It shows itself in the way you live, the way you carry yourself, and the way you treat him without trying to compete. And the more time he spends around you, the more obvious that value becomes. Eventually, that man reaches a point where he can no longer ignore the difference. He knows that staying where he is means settling, and moving forward means stepping into something real. That's when he makes his choice. Not because someone pushed him, not because someone forced his hand, but because he finally saw the value for himself. In today's world, a lot of people are caught up in trying to be something they're not just to impress someone. They put on this act, this character, like they're auditioning for a role in a play. They talk a certain way, laugh a certain way, even live a certain way just to keep somebody's attention. But here's the reality. Pretending can only last so long. At some point, the real you shows up. And when the real you comes out, if that's not what the other person fell for, the whole thing falls apart. That's why authenticity always beats pretending. A person who shows up as their true self is powerful. They don't need to perform. They don't need to switch masks depending on the situation. They don't need to keep track of the lies they told or the image they created. They're consistent, and consistency creates trust. Trust builds comfort, and comfort creates love that lasts. Pretending, on the other hand, creates doubt. Even if it looks good for a while, deep down the other person knows something is off. And when they discover the act, that trust is gone. Think about it. When a man meets someone who's pretending, he might be entertained for a while. She might seem exciting, mysterious, or larger than life, but eventually he'll notice that the act doesn't line up with reality. Maybe she's acting confident when she's really insecure. Maybe she's acting independent when she's really desperate for validation. Maybe she's acting supportive when she doesn't mean it. And when the mask slips, it leaves him confused and disappointed. That's why pretending never works in the long run. But when a man meets someone authentic, it feels different. Authenticity doesn't try to impress. It just exists. It's in the way she talks openly without fear, the way she stands in her truth, even when it's not perfect, the way she makes him feel comfortable being himself, because she's already comfortable being herself. That kind of realness is refreshing in a world full of filters and performances. It makes him want to stay because he knows what he's getting is genuine. Authenticity is also magnetic because it can't be copied. Someone else might try to look like you, act like you, or even compete with you, but they can't duplicate what makes you uniquely you. That's the power of authenticity. It sets you apart without you even trying. And when a man experiences that, he remembers it. He might not be able to explain why it feels so different, but he knows it does. He starts realizing that the authenticity you carry makes everything easier, lighter, more peaceful, and more real than what he has with someone who's just pretending. And here's the key. Authenticity doesn't chase. It doesn't beg. It doesn't try to outshine anyone else. It just shows up. And when you show up as yourself, you give him the space to make his own choice. And if he's going to leave where he is, it won't be because you pretended to be something better. It'll be because he recognized that your authenticity was something he couldn't find anywhere else. Way to win somebody over is through manipulation. They play games, create drama, use jealousy, or put pressure on a person, hoping it'll make them leave where they are and come running in their direction. But what ends up happening is the complete opposite. Manipulation might get attention for a short while, but it never creates lasting commitment. The truth is, respect is more powerful than any kind of trick or tactic, because respect builds something real while manipulation only creates a temporary illusion. When you respect a man, you're telling him with your actions that you see his value, but you also show him that you see your own. You respect yourself enough not to settle for half of his heart, not to play second to anyone else, and not to beg for love that should come freely. That kind of strength is what gets his attention, not the games. A man might laugh at the games. He might even fall for them for a little while. But when he encounters respect, that's when his mind changes. Respect has a way of cutting through confusion. It makes everything clear. When you respect yourself, you set standards for how you want to be treated. You don't lower them just to win him over. You don't bend out of shape to keep him interested. You hold firm, and in doing that, you make him realize what's really missing in his current situation. Because if he's with someone who disrespects him, nags him, or doesn't truly value him, your respect stands out in the sharpest way possible. He sees it without you saying a word. Manipulation, on the other hand, always backfires. It may feel clever in the moment, but it creates mistrust. A man who feels manipulated doesn't feel safe, and without safety, no relationship can last. He might start questioning your intentions, doubting your words, and eventually pulling away because he doesn't know if what you're offering is real or just another game. That's why respect is the better choice. It's solid, it's steady, and it leaves no room for doubt. When you carry yourself with respect, you don't need to fight for attention. You don't need to tear anyone down. You don't need to try to outsmart anyone. Respect naturally draws people in because it's rare. It says, I know what I bring, and I won't compromise it. That kind of energy is attractive because it challenges a man to rise up and match it. And if he can't, he starts to question where he is and who he's with. That's when the shift happens, not because you tricked him, but because he realized you bring something that manipulation could never produce. At the end of the day, what lasts is not the one who played the most games, but the one who showed the most respect. That's what builds trust. That's what builds love. And that's what makes a man choose to step out of something weak and into something strong. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking they can push a man into leaving someone else. They apply pressure. They issue ultimatums. They try to force the timing, hoping that if they just push hard enough, he'll let go of her and grab hold of them. But that's not how it works. You can't push somebody into a real decision of the heart, because when you do, it doesn't last. If you really want him to leave where he is, it won't be because you forced him. It'll be because he realized on his own that you were the right one all along. The truth about men is this: they don't like to be told what to do when it comes to love. They want to feel like the decision was theirs. If he leaves her because you pressured him, he'll always carry doubt in the back of his mind. He'll wonder if he made the right choice or if he just gave in. But when he leaves her because he sees something real in you, that's when the choice is solid. That's when he knows deep down he stepped into something better, not because you convinced him, but because his own spirit told him so. What makes this powerful is that it takes the pressure off you. You don't have to waste energy trying to control the situation. You don't have to check his every move or stress about when he's going to make the decision. All you have to do is keep showing who you are. Bring your peace. Bring your consistency. Bring your honesty. When he feels that difference, it'll work on his heart without you ever having to say a word. See, the reason a man breaks up with someone isn't usually because another person asked him to. It's because he looks at his life and realizes something is missing. And when you provide what's missing, when you bring joy where there's tension, support where there's criticism, comfort where there's chaos, and confidence where there's insecurity, you don't have to do the pushing. His heart does the pulling for you. It's like this: pressure creates resistance, but presence creates attraction. If you pressure him, he'll resist. If you just stay present as your authentic self, he'll feel drawn toward you naturally. And once that pull gets strong enough, he'll start questioning why he's still holding on to something that doesn't give him what you bring. That's when the shift happens. That's when the choice becomes clear. The beauty of letting him make the decision himself is that when he finally does, it comes with certainty. He doesn't go back and forth. He doesn't regret it, and he doesn't wonder if he rushed. He knows. And when a man knows, that's when he commits fully, not halfway, not temporarily, but completely. And that's the kind of commitment you want, not one that was pushed, but one that was chosen freely because he saw for himself that you were the right one.